So we've had a second night of confrontation or violence outside Citywest, the asylum seeker centre there.
Mm.
There was a number of arrests, obviously on Tuesday night, but a number of arrests again last night. What's the latest in terms of the figures?
So the latest is that over 30 people have been arrested in relation to the two nights of violence now. There was protests since Monday, but they became violent on Tuesday and continued last night. So there have been, over 30 arrests. 17 people were due in court today charged in relation to public order offences. 5 were charged yesterday. And then just in the last couple of minutes, Gardaí have put out a statement saying that a further man is going to be charged today in relation to a violent disorder offence, which is a little bit more serious. There's also 5 teenagers who were arrested, but because they were under 18, they're going to be dealt with by the juvenile diversion programme, so they won't be charged before an adult court, but they will be dealt with by the justice system. Mostly men. There's a few women that were arrested and as well. So I suppose there was over 300 Gardaí there last night as well. 120 of them were public order police. More than that were just normal Gardaí who wouldn't have been completely unarmed. And I think the crowd swelled to nearly 2,000 people on Tuesday night. And I
Tuesday
think
night,
similar.
I think it was slightly
less
definitely,
on Wednesday, but
on Wednesday,
a lot of people were there still. So they're obviously, we seen arrests and charges after Tuesdays, but because of what continued on Wednesday night, Gardaí have upped that now. There's been loads of statements from all angles of the Gardaí and the political sphere. So there's been a lot more arrests and a lot more charges expected.
So and the guards have actually released body cam footage, which
is unusual for them.
Which is unusual now. Of course, they'll say that the they haven't had the body cam cameras in place long, but it's certainly something other police forces do. But it's not something the Gardaí have done typically. So let's go back to what has happened now. Obviously, a man has been charged in relation to the alleged sex attack on a 10-year-old girl. So because that's now sub judice or it's before the courts, the discussions of that have to be limited. That's the way it is, and it's true. That's true of all publications and all media outlets. However, the reports of a sex attack on a child really sparked this event, and that was first reported on Monday night.
Yeah, that was first reported on Monday night. So, well, the incident is alleged to have happened in the early hours of Monday, but that sparked an outcry on social media. And the alleged incident happened in Saggart, which is just outside Tallaght in Dublin, West Dublin. Garter Lane is the address, and there is an IPAS centre there, so for international protection applicants. There's also Ukrainian people who have fled here from the war. And outside that centre then in Citywest Hotel, there have been protests. They did start peacefully. There was protests happening on Monday, and then Tuesday the violence really escalated to the point where there was, a lot of people. Not everybody obviously had violent intentions, but a lot of people were, throwing missiles at police. There was bottles thrown at police. There was fireworks thrown at police. There was sulky horses being led towards police. There was meters around people's homes. Obviously, Saggart is it's becoming more and more built up. It's a very residential area. There was people afraid to leave their homes. There was meter boxes at people's homes broken up as well. And there was on Tuesday night a Garda vehicle was set alight and destroyed. I think we've all seen those pictures at this point.
Yeah. But just to go back to the original event that sparked it, and again, we can't go into it in great detail, but it was like a very unusual tale where obviously Tusla put out a statement saying the 10-year-old child in question was in the care of the state. Again, I suppose we have another one of these high-profile incidents where questions inevitably will have to be asked about Tusla. They put out a statement saying the child was in the care of the state, but saying that the child had then, I think the word was the word absconded used, but certainly had been out on some trip out and had basically got away from the TUSLA workers. Now, when a child is in care of the state, it means what it says. The state are taking responsibility away from family or friends and have taken the child into their care. So, I mean, that in itself has to ask, I mean, I'm sure again that we're going to hear more about what happened. But again, it's maybe it's not surprising at this stage that TUSLA are being mentioned in this.
No.
Then obviously the child is a 10-year-old child is floating around.
Yeah.
Certainly. And then there's an allegation of a sex assault.
Yeah.
Now that's come before the court, so
it has.
We can't discuss that, but certainly it brings a huge reaction.
It does. I suppose what we can say about that is that a 26-year-old man appeared in court on Monday, charged in relation to the alleged sex attack. He was back in court on Wednesday. His bail, so you can obviously apply for bail. That date was deferred for a couple of days, and the judge requested that there would be an assessment for fitness to be tried, so for his fitness to face trial. There was also an Arabic interpreter used in court as well for the defendant, but he was remanded in custody and will issue back for that possible bail application. So that's all we can say in relation to the court process really at the moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, like anybody who comes before the courts, it's limited what you can say, but we can speak about the reaction to it, because straight away, people started sharing stuff on social media. I watched a good bit of it. So, I mean, people have a genuine reaction to, reports of a child suffering something like this.
Of course.
And this isn't uncommon. I mean, we've had marches across the city in different cases. In very different cases, where, for example, the Natasha O'Brien case, a very highly publicised case. She was attacked by a member of the Defence Forces at the time. She was beaten up very savagely.
On a night out, yeah.
And so people, in the aftermath of that case, there was public protests. Many other cases as well. We won't get into them because they're all very different in this case.
Yeah.
So people had an instinctive reaction to it.
Yes.
And there'd already been local groups who were not happy with the use of the Citywest as a big centre to house asylum seekers. So that all comes together, not so much on Monday night. It comes together on Monday night before the details have become public.
Yeah.
But then you do, certainly on Tuesday. Now, the guards have said that there's, on Tuesday, there's a bigger group. It erupts in violence. Now, what has been the political reaction? Because the guards have said quite clearly that they believe there is a degree of orchestration. That there was. I mean, they use very strong terms. Tell us, I suppose, what they have said.
Yeah, so I suppose Justin Kelly, who was the Garda Commissioner, he put out a statement this week in relation to it. And he obviously basically said, this is not a peaceful protest. There was nothing peaceful about this in relation to the violence that escalated. The Taoiseach, Simon Harris put out statements. Micheál Martin has put out statements, the Taoiseach. I suppose, as we know, the Gardaí put out an appeal for information. And as part of that appeal, as you said, there was dashcam footage, which just shows how kind of things had escalated out of control. And there has been the GRA, which is the Garda. It's the body that represents uniform members of the Gardaí. They have basically said that they're extremely concerned for their members. There was 4 Gardaí over the 2 nights that were taken to hospital. One had a foot injury from Tuesday night, and then one was hit in the head with a bottle on Wednesday night. So the GRA have basically said that they're extremely concerned that obviously these people were doing their jobs, but it's not okay, and there's just been widespread condemnation of the violence.
There absolutely has been widespread condemnation.
Yeah.
And of course, then we had a second night of it last night, which is probably kind of a smaller degree of violence, but you had seen certainly a lot of the reports that have been highlighted by certain politicians have been focusing on the role of sort of young men and horses and sulkies and all. We've heard all sorts of details about that and fireworks being.
We have, yeah. And I suppose, so like, Justin Kelly put out this statement on Wednesday ahead of the second night of violence, but he basically said this was not a peaceful protest. Peaceful protest does not involve throwing bricks, bottles and discharging fireworks directly at Gardaí. Peaceful protest does not involve trying to breach a guarded cordon with a horse or scrambler motorbikes. Peaceful protest does not involve persons arming themselves with weapons. Peaceful protest does not involve burning Garda vehicles. So we know that happened on Tuesday, because originally I think the events kicked off around 7 p.m. on Tuesday and they'd been calmed by 10 p.m. But it's been described by locals and onlookers, people at the scene, as 90 minutes of chaos. As you said, there was more last night. It wasn't as bad, but there were 3 Gardaí taken to hospital, or 2 were taken to hospital, 3 were injured. And we have, we've been reporting on it. Our colleagues in the Irish Independent, Robin Schiller, has been reporting that Gardaí suspects that while there were people that are concerned about the IPES Centre in Citywest who have been peacefully protesting before this, that, there were people there, but a lot of it was hijacked by, they say, basically those with criminal intent, those from the far right, and that they do think that it was maybe more planned than the Dublin riots, which happened nearly 2 years ago now. So that's kind of what is coming from security sources, that they think that there may have been an element of pre-planning and that basically this was hijacked. What maybe was originally people protesting about their concerns, and peaceful protest is allowed obviously in a democratic society, that there's fears now that this was hijacked by criminal elements.
Which of course not everybody agrees with. And you have to understand, I suppose, and accept that people have a genuine emotional reaction to reports of a child suffering such an attack.
Yeah.
That people feel that, how it is absorbed by the political system. I did see somebody writing, the politicians care more about people throwing stones than attacks on children. However, the other reality, I suppose, is that in any normal society, attacks on Gardaí of this type, or attacks on police of this type, they can't and won't be tolerated.
No. And it's not just attacks on police though as well. Like there's people, we spoke to people, our colleagues spoke to people who were afraid to leave their homes. They have young children. We spoke to the principal of a school, say Aidan's Community School, who they have a lot of non-national members of their school who are basically saying our children are being targeted. We're concerned. And then there was a spokesperson for the Ukrainian community on More in Ireland this morning, and they told how basically, because this IPAS centre, I took down, so it has 1,200 Ukrainian people, so people who have fled the war between Ukraine and Russia, and then 460 asylum seekers. So those Ukrainian people were told not to leave their accommodation and not to open the windows, and are terrified. And these are families who we are giving to refuge to because they're fleeing a war-torn, unsafe country, yet they come here and they're witnessing this. So, it's not just the Gardaí. Obviously, the Gardaí are on the front line and they've been subjected to violence, which is not okay. Whatever you think about Gardaí and handling of certain justice issues, that's just not okay. And I know you were talking about other protests that have happened, violence against women, marches, and we've seen this week Niamh Kelly, a really brave woman, she was stabbed 50 times and left for dead by her former partner. He's Josh O'Brien, he's a Dublin native, and we have seen protests, but we haven't seen, to my knowledge, those protests descend into this chaos. So I do think that there's a lot of social issues, people have concerns, and you shouldn't be branded a certain thing because you have concerns about IPAS centres in your area. But I think that this is also being used as an excuse by people who just have an anger and they just want to cause violence. And we've seen it in the Dublin riots as well. Obviously, that sparked from an incident involving children as well 2 years ago in Dublin City, and descended into people looting shops. So how do you equate looting shops with being concerned for violence against children? There's a lot of elements to this as well that are just, people taking advantage of a situation to cause carnage. Not everybody, obviously, but some people.
Yeah, but the issue of immigration has become a huge issue, and it's something that causes this huge divide. That there are people on the ground across the country in various places who feel that they're not being listened to, and they feel that there is a link between criminality and immigration.
Yeah.
On the other side, we heard people in the Dáil today saying that that's wrong to link them, and there is this kind of unbridgeable. It's what I think they used to call it in the north. It's dialogue of the deaf, where these two sides can't seem to come to a conclusion and find a way forward. However, you are seeing what I suppose very, very strong statements from that. That's the issue. That's the issue of how we cope with a number of people coming into the country seeking asylum. And there have been an increases, certainly maybe not this year, but in recent years there was a huge increase. And how we cope with it has become something that we're struggling with.
Yeah.
But there are people drawing a clear distinction. Politicians such as the Taoiseach Simon Harris, who says, for example, he says there's no excuse for this type of violence and thuggery against the men and women who serve to protect us and victims of crime every day.
Yeah.
So I think people who have, as you say, genuine concerns, surely, and who seek to find a different way on the issue of asylum seekers, how they're housed, how the state copes with them, even what number of people we take in, or obviously the deportation issue has become a big issue in this case as well. We don't know the exact circumstances there, but certainly people are being served with deportation orders and are remaining in the state for a long number of years. And we know this, and we've seen many cases of this.
Yeah.
But I suppose the issue is, surely these nights of violence can only be damaging to any political case that people make and are entitled to make.
Of course, and I think it's hypocritical of the people that, I'm not talking about the people who started as a peaceful protest, and there has been apparently protests against this centre from people that has never descended into violence, but the people who were actually involved in that direct violence, I think that's hypocritical, because how can you say I'm standing out against this? What is horrific, that alleged incident is horrific against a child, but they're meeting it with violence of their own, putting other people in danger. So I don't know how you can partake in that without allegations of hypocrisy there, in my opinion. And I also just think that this incident is taken away from actually dealing with what people say there is genuine concerns, because now the whole conversation this week from the political parties, from the Gardaí, is focusing on this violence. It's not focusing on the immigration, because there's 300 Gardaí being sent to an area last night and spending their time dealing with, bringing people to court for public order offences, and people who are throwing bricks and throwing fireworks at Gardaí, and some of them seem to be revelling in it, in the chaos as well. So I don't see how these violent actions are in any way going to address concerns about alleged violent acts being carried out by people who, should or should not be in Ireland.
Yeah, so look, I mean, it's the policing, certainly, I think we can see as well from 2023 and the Dublin riots that the guards have certainly changed their tactics. That's another interesting bit of it. It seems to be a tactic that they allow these protests to escalate, to go on for a bit of time, that they don't come in heavy straight away, that they let it develop for an hour and a half or an hour, whatever it is, maybe to sort of build up a head of steam and maybe calm down.
Yeah.
And then they certainly have changed how they deal with these tactically, and they in terms of the water cannons, and we see the Garda horse unit. I'm sure that's not the proper name of it, but
no.
So they seem to have developed the tactics. So we'll come back to this tomorrow maybe and look at in detail at the policing response, and look at the fact that, this is likely to be a feature of our reporting and of people's lives for the next period of time, because the tensions over immigration, the disconnect between the two sides, if you want to call it, between people on the ground, and some people on the ground in some communities, and the political response is only growing wider.
Yeah.
And you have a kind of a more sophisticated policing, but you also have more sophisticated people who are intent on using these events.
Of course, but I also do think that there might be some people listening who, have concerns about IPAS centres in their area, but completely completely condemned this violence as well. So I think that's important to say, that I don't think, you can have genuine concerns about the issues of immigration and the other social issues going on in Ireland, but I think a lot of, normal people will just think that what's happening last night is just the results of thuggery. So I think that's important to say as well, because, and actually I'm going to read out a quote here from Conor Featon. One of our colleagues spoke to locals they're living right beside where this happened. And, they said, and I think this is a fair point, this is what a local said: there are concerns about the density of the centre and whether more people will be brought in if other units are provided on site. Those concerns are mainly about density and lack of facilities. And there are democratic ways of voicing those concerns, but what happened in relation to the violence went beyond that and doesn't represent the majority of the local community. So that's what a local is saying there. So fair enough, you're living beside an IPAS centre. It's a very built-up area as it is, and there can be concerns there, and you can legitimately voice them. But I think we also need to, I know this violence, as you're saying, is stemming from certain issues, and we can go into them, but you also just need to highlight as well that a lot of people aren't happy with that violence either.
No.
You know.
Okay, well, thanks, Eimear, and we'll come back to this again in more detail.
Thank you, Niall.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.